Okay. Fifth question. What challenges do you foresee in implementing a gynarchy-based system in modern society? Oh, this is a really good one because I'm not really sure how to answer this. Like I read this and I'm like, I think there are several challenges. First, the challenge is as a community, we have to come together and we have to decide how we're going to help each other, right? At the present time, we're conversing with each other. We're kind of discovering who we are. We're engaging in certain topics and discussions, but we haven't really formed any kind of organization yet as far as I know. I'm not saying, you can have the rare individual who does it, but I mean, we don't have gynarchists regularly getting together, forming organizations, talking with each other about working on specific projects. This is generally not a thing. So if you're talking about the first challenge is actually cooperation, which is you and I working on a project and getting something done. Or these people getting together saying, let's do this or let's do that. That's the first challenge, is you have to have cooperation. You have to have people working together. And then the next thing after cooperation, because when you're talking about implementation, first you have to have cooperation. But once you have cooperation, another thing that a challenge is you have to be concerned with how your movement you have to be concerned with where you grow your movement and how you grow your movement. So you will face infinitely more challenges growing a gynarchy movement if you keep it homegrown. I've talked about this before. You can watch on one of my previous videos. One big challenge that you're going to face is acceptance. Obviously, people are going to look at you and they're going to judge you before even getting to know who you are. So it's a huge challenge to either get past that or work in spite of that, because some people will act violently. Some human beings will send threats. We've already had a member of our community who's received death threats and other stuff from people who were afraid of her. So we already know about this stuff. One of the other challenges that probably will end up being a problem in implementing the system is actually the collapse of the system, right? So if you were attempting to implement a state or federal gynarchy while the planet is becoming uninhabitable due to global heating, that's like probably one of your, if not your main challenge. Another thing that will be a challenge is convincing feminists and radical feminists to adopt gynarchic ideology, because some of them will not go along with you. Some of them will have their own personal reasons for sticking to the thing. Like some of them will say, hey, we haven't even gotten to equality. How are we going to get to this? Like they think that it's like some kind of, line that we have to walk through. Like we can't jump over here. We have to walk through here first. So some of them have said that and continued to believe that, even though I disagree with that. They will cite those as reasons. So you're going to have a big challenge convincing people to take that step. And it's because some of them are very proud of their beliefs. They're very proud of the work that they've done. Because when you're asking somebody to change like this, you could be potentially asking them to either abandon the work that they've done or to betray their previously held values for something new. And what are you offering them that's better than what they're leaving behind? That's going to be a huge challenge in the future for implementing any kind of gynarchic-based system. You have to show that what you're offering is better than what they currently have. In other words, you're going to need to focus on results. You're going to need to get something done. So that's another thing. One final challenge is you're going to have to deal with male violence. You're going to have to deal with men who are going to be attacking guys. Like right now, they don't really care because we're in small numbers. But once you get in sufficiently large numbers and you catch the attention of the misogynistic males, the hateful males, there are going to be some serious challenges with protecting our people and keeping our people safe from them, because once we get large enough, there will be violence. Some of it will be directed towards them. A lot of it will just be verbal, but it's still something that you will have to be concerned about as society changes, as more people come over to this corner. So there is that. I can't think of any other challenges right now. So I'm going to have to move on to the next point. I think there's only 2 questions left. How do you respond to critics who argue that gynarchy might mirror the pitfalls of patriarchy. I would ask those critics to go educate themselves about Masuo and other matriarchal societies before they make assumptions about what a gynarchy would look like. I really would, because this happens even in the femdom community, where they make the assumption that gynarchy is reverse patriarchy. No, it's not. Because matriarchy, which currently it does exist in a few places in the world, is not the reverse. The women are not cutting their men's testicles off, crushing their balls. They're not abusing the men in their lives when they have the power. We've already seen that. They are actually making their societies healthier for women. Their societies do not have detrimental effects on the health of their men. In fact, they help their men. They prevent their. Some of them have prevented their men from getting into serious financial trouble by arranging their marriages and by their approach to the institution of marriage, especially in Masuo, is completely different from what the West does. You can cut your relationship off with no financial obligations, none of that stuff. You don't have to pay a cent. You're done. So the idea that women would like, first you have to address, would women abuse men when they have the power? Well, we can look to these societies and go, well, are they doing it? And if they're like, okay, well, the men rebelling? No, because the men are fine with the system. They like those systems. They're not going crazy. They're not doing what the men in the West are doing, like getting on the internet, trying to encourage other men to go kill women and girls or rape them or do other fucked up stuff. The men in Masuo don't do these things. The men in matriarchal societies are totally different. They're socialized differently. They're raised differently. They're not the same. So when you talk about pitfalls, you're talking about like gynarchy being a mirror. It's not a mirror, because in order, like, this is part of the problem with this entire discussion, right? Is when you're saying this system will mirror this system, it's almost as if you're implying that men mirror women, or that women mirror men. Men are not women. Women are not men. These two groups are not the same. They both behave differently and they act differently. We can look to Masuo and see this. Women with power as a group do not behave the same as when men have power as a group. We know this because we have seen it throughout history. We have seen what happens when men as a group get into power and prevent anybody else from achieving that power. Bloodshed, wars, nonstop. We know it. We've seen it. But when you get women into power, when they start controlling society, what you actually see is you either see something that is more egalitarian or more gynocentric. You do not see women handling power the same way men do. You also don't even see the same kinds of government structures, of family structures, of societal, the way they interact in their society. They're totally different. So if the women in the matriarchies are not mirroring men when they hold power, why do you think that in a gynarchy where women would have absolute control, why would that somehow be a pitfall? How would they end up mirroring patriarchy? Do you think that a system is separate from the people who live in it? A system is nothing but the people that are comprised of it interacting with each other and doing the things that they do. So if women are not behaving and acting the same ways that men do, even when they do have power and authority, then what would be the problem with gynarchy? I think a lot of these issues, I think the question is because a lot of people have fears and concerns over what women would do if they had absolute power or authority. And while some of those concerns, they're natural, it's natural to question it, it's natural to be afraid of changes, to wonder if these things would happen, we do have some real world examples to go to actually test this question this question out to answer it. We don't need to even get to, well, would gynarchy be the same thing? I don't think so. I don't think it would be a mirror to patriarchy. That doesn't seem like the case at all. So that's why I would respond to critics who are arguing with it. I'd say, look at the societies that already exist that are gynocentric. and actually center women's needs in their health, and then ask yourself if women having authority and power in their societies is somehow magically going to result in men being mass murdered or all this other shit. Like, these are male fantasies. This is a lot of these fears come from these weird male fantasies of women rising up and like crushing men's balls and like putting millions of men in cages. Like, that's a fantasy. That's some fantasy male bullshit. That's not how women would actually act and behave if they got into power as a group. We know because, like I said. Okay, final question. What advice would you give to individuals interested in learning more about gynarchy and incorporating its principles into their lives? I would say read Viola Volturine's books. Do research on matriarchal societies like Masuo, the Kazi, and so on and so forth. And then I would suggest, my advice would be to meditate on these thoughts and ideas. And then when you're done with that, interact with people in gynarchy communities, whether they're on Twitter, but Reddit's really probably the best place you can go to, especially the serious gynarchy group. Interact with them there, maybe on FetLife, as long as they're okay with it. Because it's not enough to have ideas. You have to be able to express those with people who think like you do or who feel the way you might start feeling. So that would be my first bit of advice. Join the community, see what you think about other people, see how you feel about your interactions with others. Sometimes you have to spend time with a family before you decide whether or not they're your family. Give it a little while. Give yourself some time to see how you feel about the other gynarchists and whether you think this is a community that you want to be part of. You have to give yourself time. And as for incorporating its principles into their lives, one advice I'd give about this is think about what you want. What do you want it for? Do you want it for your relationship, or do you want it for your family, or do you want it for your community? Because I think that will determine how you want to incorporate principles of gynarchy into your life, wherever that might be. You're going to have to think about what exactly it is you want to incorporate it into. Some people only want it for their relationships. Other people want it for their family, and so on and so forth. So you have to make that decision. You're the one who's going to have to give some thought about that. Or sorry, the one who's going to have to think about that. I hope I've answered these questions to the best of my. I hope I've answered them to everyone's satisfaction, to the best of my ability. What does everybody else? Does anybody else have some? What's their reaction to these questions? How would they answer them? Please take care, everybody, and take care. Oh, sorry. Please take care, everybody, and peace out. I hope you all have a great day.